Hi, we're Shane and Natalie, and we're nerds.
Yep.
That having been said, when we met, she wasn't as much of a nerd as she could have been because she'd never seen Star Trek before.
I wasn't really sci-fi at the time. I was more fantasy nerd.
I grew up watching a lot of Star Trek, and that was just my favorite thing growing up since I was very young. And she had never seen it, and so I wanted to see if we could get her into it. And eventually, I did.
Mm-hmm. You did make an abortive attempt at one point. Unfortunately, he tried to start initially when I had influenza, so I fell asleep 10 minutes into the episode.
So far, what have we watched?
So far, we have watched all of Deep Space Nine. We have watched all of Star Trek The Next Generation. We are about 2/3 of the way, I believe, through the original series. I think we're on episode 7 of season 3, but I've also also watched some out of order as well before I started watching.
We mainly watched the good ones, so I don't think you've really seen any other ones from season 3.
Okay, so apparently we're on about episode 7 of season 3, and then I think we've watched like 3 or 4 episodes of Enterprise. We haven't watched much of Enterprise.
We'll get back into that one, but
and then Voyager.
We watched.
I don't know what we watched of Voyager. We did not watch all of Voyager, and
we watched from beginning. We watched the whole series in the sense that we watched one, we skipped a few, we watched one, we skipped a few from season 1.
I haven't seen every episode, but I think I've seen enough to kind of understand what Voyager is. And
maybe we'll go back and watch some of them, but it just. I mean, I always thought Voyager was. I'm
mad at the finale.
Voyager's always been. Where do you see the Enterprise finale? Voyager was. One of these shows that has taken a lot of flack as not being very good over the years, and I always defended it and thought it was great, and I still like it, but when I was going through trying to pick the episodes for her to watch, there's a lot of them that I didn't want to watch them.
I enjoyed the episodes of Voyager we did watch. I especially enjoyed the holographic Doctor was my absolute favorite character.
Well, most of the episodes we watched were
about him.
Increasingly as we went on, because all of the good episodes are about him.
Yeah.
All of the episodes that are not just kind of boring, are about him or 7 of 9. Mm-hmm. Because as they move forward...
Q. I liked Q.
Well, Q is always good. But so actually, apparently when they made the series, which doesn't make sense to me because it was after Deep Space Nine, but the studio supposedly said, you have to do... we want it to be episodic. We don't want it to be...
That doesn't make any sense.
Which doesn't make sense for what Voyager is. That's the biggest issue.
No, yeah.
But one of the ways that worked out is, again, from what I've read, I didn't work on the show, so I don't know, but that the character development, they didn't want there to be a ton of character development. They wanted you to tune in and you see the character, you know who the character is. But the Doctor and 7 and 9 are characters where it's like development is baked into them. And the result was that all these better episodes are about them.
Because you build a good story by building good characters. It is very hard to build a good story with just the plot. You need the characters to make the story real.
The Deep Space Nine, I was just reading today actually a comment about how the Deep Space Nine writers had said that, it might have been in that documentary, but they said that they never wrote a plot to write a plot. They always wrote a plot with the goal of developing a character.
Which is the best way to write.
Well,
yes, but that's as a writer, that is the best way to write. You don't write a story for the goal of telling a story. You write a story for the goal of explaining a character, essentially, and developing the character, which is why your characters become real and do things you don't expect.
Right. Yeah. So,
that's why the cliche exists.
One of the things I want to talk about is, primarily right now, is... So, if you go online and you do a lot of, you read you find questions people are asking. What is the series that I should use to try to get my friends in Star Trek? What is the series to introduce my wife? Right, that kind of question. And most of the time, you'll get one of two answers. Almost all of the time. People either say we have to start with just Star Trek. Just start with original Star Trek and just go from, and just show them that. Because that's where it all began. So you have to do that. Or people will say you start with the Next Generation. Because the Next Generation is the best of the series. And it's the one that is just the most classic of all the series.
I think it's one of the most iconic.
Oh, okay. Now that's not what I did.
No.
Right?
And I'm happy with what you did.
So I didn't do that at all. And so I wanted to see, now that you've kind of seen enough, mm-hmm. You've seen pretty much all the classic series other than Enterprise. Mm-hmm. Okay? And we didn't watch any of the modern stuff. But I started with Deep Space Nine. Mm-hmm. Because I thought Deep Space Nine was the show. My thinking was, if we could get her into it,
you did.
To like Deep Space Nine, mm-hmm. then that would be the hook. Because that's a series where it's got that, I want to see what happens next aspect to it. Right?
Yes.
If you get into it at all, you want to see the next step in the story.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it's also the most modern of all the series in the way the story is told.
Yes.
It's the same thing.
It's serialized.
It's serialized. Even the non-serialized ones are still...
It's still within the realm of the series. You can still, watching them, relate back to how you can see it's happening at the same time as the serialized.
And again, back to the character thing. If something happens to a character in one episode...
It stays happening to them.
Right. Exactly.
Somebody doesn't die and come back the next episode with absolutely no repercussions or no explanation or anything.
So my thinking was, we have to watch this. We're gonna do Deep Space Nine mm-hmm. because it's got that hook and it's the most modern one. And I'm a traditionalist about a lot of stuff like television shows, But even so, there's a lot of old shows that I remember were awesome. And I go back and I try to watch them, and I just kind of can't. Because they're too, I can't if I'm in the right mood, but I need that sort of hook to what's next, mm-hmm. right? So that's what I went with. So what do you think about that?
The only problem I have with the fact that you started me with DS9 is that then every other series I was trying to compare it to DS9 and I've still enjoyed most of the other series. I even enjoyed Voyager for the most part, the parts we watched anyway, except for the finale. The finale needs to be beat over the head with a hammer. But more like a disc. Okay. But none of the other episodes have the storytelling depth and the character depth that DS9 does. So that's how the other series kind of fall flat for me. It's just they don't have the incredible depth and the such satisfying resolution that DS9 had. I was disappointed in the resolution of the Next Generation because there were just so many strings that were left loose. You don't find out a bunch of stuff and it's just left loose. Voyager's ending is just not talking about it. I haven't seen the original series, but I know it's a series from the 60s, so that means that there's absolutely no serialization right now. I'm not expecting there to be any kind of special thing for the series finale. That's not something they did in the 60s.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen the ending of Enterprise yet, obviously.
So,
apparently I'm going to hate that one too.
Deep Space Nine, I agree with all that. That's why I like it. How did we do The Next Generation when we started to watch that?
When we started to watch The Next Generation, I think you cherry-picked good episodes for a while, and then after we hit a certain point, we just watched everything else in chronological order.
Partly true. I did cherry-pick good ones for a while, but I started with something else altogether.
I don't remember what you started with. The first episode of The Next Generation I remember watching is the one where the one where they turn into the Robin Hood characters.
Okay.
That was my first. That was actually before you even got me into DS9. That was.
Okay, so that's not related. That's just because that might have been an attempt to get her into it by showing her something I thought would be funny.
You were watching it while you were doing something else, and I was trying to figure out why the heck all these Star Trek characters were in Robin Hood.
Well, the way I did it is I actually picked episodes that focus on Worf.
That's right. You did start with the Worf episodes to get me into it.
Because you knew Worf from
Yes.
Deep Space Nine.
He's so much better in DS9. He gets to actually be competent.
That's true. He is a lot more competent in Deep Space Nine.
Yes.
Now, you know, a lot of people complain he's a different, not complain, but they say he's a different character. I don't think so. I actually recently saw this compilation of moments of Worf from the Next Generation, and they're really spot on to the Worf from Deep Space Nine. But definitely now
his character gets explored more in DS9.
True, but in the Next Generation, I would say also that Worf is one of the few characters that has a little bit of development and arc and depth to him.
Because of Alexander.
Well, as part of it, it's not the only. I mean, even that was kind of done badly. It's like, hey, you have a son. Now we're never going to see him again other than 4 more times in the whole series.
Yeah, but there's he still does.
There's more than you see the children. Everybody loves Raymond.
True. This is true.
But there's that, and they have the whole kind of Klingon. They start to delve into his background and the Klingon thing.
More so than any other character on the Next Generation. So he's probably, he's got, other than Data, he's got the most fleshed out character of anybody on the Next Generation Enterprise.
Yeah. So, what do you think about the idea of starting a person out with one of those other shows?
So I think it would depend on the person. So if it's somebody who really enjoys a really good engrossing story, I would still start him on DS9. Because DS9, that is the big draw, is it is the best story. Because it really is a serialized show. It is a complete story. Whereas the other ones are TV shows that might have a longer arc to them, but they're just, a TV show. So if somebody really, really, really likes good story, I would point them towards DS9. Otherwise, I would probably start them somewhere in the Next Generation.
So you're saying that the Next Generation has bad stories?
Not that it has bad stories, but the DS9 is about an overarching storyline. It's about the Dominion. It's about the Bajorans. It's about Dukat. It has the complete arc. Whereas the Next Generation, it's not that the Next Generation is bad, but they're just a ship going and fulfilling different missions that they're sent to. They're ferrying ambassadors from here to there. They're investigating new planets. They're checking on colonists. They're doing all that which isn't bad. It's just there's no overarching theme to really pull everything together and make it so tight and compact. And the characters are good. They're just not as deeply fleshed out as they are in DS9. In DS9, everybody is so incredibly well fleshed out that you look back. I think Vic Fontaine is a good one. He doesn't even come in until the sixth season. And it feels like he's in way more episodes than he is because his character is still so fleshed out.
Yeah. That's true. They did... So, similar with Ezri Dax, because when I think back to the show, I always think of Ezri instead of Jadzia for Dax.
To the point we named our cat Ezri.
So, I guess you could look at that as a thing of being about the particular characters, but I also think it's just, even with only having her for one season, the show made her into this character that you really remember.
Mm-hmm.
In a way that's far, you don't remember other characters from. Pick a character that's only on a show for a season or something, mm-hmm. And do you? So, for instance, it's not the perfect comparison, but it's pretty good. Is on the Next Generation you have. Ensign Rowe, who's only in the 5th season.
Yeah, or Dr. Pulaski.
Dr. Pulaski, who's only in the 2nd season.
Frankly, I wouldn't have remembered unless we hadn't watched that episode of the original series where she was in and you laughed at me for 10 minutes while I tried.
She was in another one too that you missed.
She was?
Yeah.
Which one?
Which one did we just watch?
We just watched the one where she was the blind lady trying to communicate with the ambassador. I don't remember.
So remember the one where it's called Return to Tomorrow. It's
the episodes.
So it's the one where they go to that planet and they have those big spheres, and Sargon is in. And then they.
That's her.
That's her. The woman in that one is
How come? Okay, now that's gonna bother me, but I should probably not let it bother me on camera.
Anything you want to bother you, it's fine. Be bothered.
I apparently need to go back and watch clips from that episode again.
Yeah, that's her.
Okay. But
if I'm not mistaken.
I wouldn't have even remembered that she was on the Next Generation.
But Esri stands out more.
Mm-hmm.
And that show has a million bit part characters.
That you think are in there more than they are.
That you just really remember.
Brunt,
you remember. You remember Lita.
You remember Zach.
Zach
is hysterical.
Zach is in 7 episodes. I think that might even be it's only 5 or something. I forget.
Moogie's only in like 4.
I think it is 4, yeah.
Moogie's in there so infrequently, but we've only been naming Franny.
Well, there's a lot of Franny in that show.
That's true.
No, Lita is the Bajoran.
Lita's a Bajoran, yeah.
Bajoran, yeah. So she's in there.
Kai Wynn.
Well, she's in a lot more.
Yeah, she's one of the main antagonists, other than Ducat.
But they just developed characters, and they kept bringing them back.
Yes.
Which you don't normally see done in a lot of these other series, especially from that time period.
Yeah, they would come on for a cameo and then they'd be gone.
Yeah.
But they kept bringing them back.
Right.
Ducat wasn't even originally intended to be like the big.
I don't know. I think Ducat might have been intended to be around.
I thought in that one documentary we watched, I thought the writer said something about the fact that Ducat was in so many episodes was a tribute to how the actor played
That might
him,
be true, yeah.
Because they kept bringing him back just because they liked writing the character so much.
That might be true. There is one character that they did bring back, I know for sure was not intended to be back. Wayoon. So they had him in.
Was delightful to hate.
And he's a great actor. Jeffrey Combs has been in a zillion things in Star Trek. If you look at his page.
Hasn't he been in like every single one except the original series?
I don't know if he's been in Next Generation. I'm not sure. He was in Voyager.
I thought you had pointed him out when he was in the Next Generation. I remembered.
I'll have to look into that because I don't remember it.
I thought I remembered.
He was in Voyager.
Yeah.
He plays a major role in Enterprise. He's one of the best characters in the franchise. He is like a reason to watch I want to get watching the show because of him.
We hadn't seen him yet, had we?
I don't believe so, no. But he is a fantastic. He's just a great character in that show. And so, but they invented the whole thing about the clones so they could bring him back because he died in the first one.
That's right, I forgot about that.
But they liked him so much that they wanted to bring him back.
He was on that first episode where they first encountered the Dominion, right? The first Vorta I
think he's the first Vorta. I don't know if it's the first. It's not the first time when they encountered the Dominion, I don't believe.
Well, but I thought I remembered the first time they encountered the Dominion was when they encountered the Vorta on the one planet. Well, on what was supposed to be the father-son trip that Jake and Ben were.
That is
Cisco, and he dragged Rom.
Yeah.
Not Rom.
Quark.
No, not Quark.
I thought it was Quark.
I thought Nog.
Maybe it is Nog.
Maybe it was both.
No, I think it was Quark and Nog. Yeah. But.
Because Zach had tasked him with contacting the Dominion.
But it was not.
It's not the first time the Dominion was mentioned, but it's the first time.
It's not the first time it's mentioned. It's the first time that they encounter the Jem'Hadar. That's the name of the episode. Actually, it's called Jem'Hadar.
Oh, okay.
But I don't remember if Wayoon is in that one.
I thought I remembered there being a Vorta in that one.
I
thought that Vorta was Wayoon.
There might have been a Vorta. I don't know that it was Wayoon, but we could. I don't know. We could check. In any event, he's a character that they just like the actor. Mm-hmm. And so it goes into the whole emphasis on character in that franchise. They said this is a great character.
Yes.
The way he's portrayed it. Mm-hmm. Ducat is a great character.
Oh, he's a phenomenal character.
They,
I even remember getting upset when Kai Wynn stopped. because both Dukat and Kai Wynn were kind of heading towards redemption and becoming better people, and then they both did the 360 and went and followed the Pyraith, and I just remember being so upset and disappointed because they had shown they could be good, and then they were completely the opposite, and I was just I remember being so disappointed. I didn't even like Kai Wynn. I kind of hated her.
I think that Dukat comes across as more believably being a good guy.
Yes.
And before he goes back the other way.
Before he goes absolutely insane.
Whereas Kai Wynn comes across as like, and this is not bad necessarily, but she comes across like she's trying to be good, but she's not really feeling it.
Yeah, she's trying to be good, but she's trying to do it because she thinks she should be, but not because she likes it.
Trying to do the right thing when you're not feeling it is
important.
Is a virtuous thing to do. But with Dukat, he seemed like he was genuinely
better, especially after Zial.
And I don't know what the mind, I guess, of the writers would have been, or if it were, in other words, trying to think of him as a real person. Was he always
my guess
just kind of not really good, or was he actually going down that path, and then his kind of his deeper,
at least as someone who's explored character before, based on what I can see in the show, even the early Dukat had that element in him where if something hit his switch, he would go completely insane. So even though he was progressing towards good, the problem was after Zial died, that switch got flipped. So I can see where he was actually progressing towards good, but then he wasn't doing it well. He had a completely twisted conscience that didn't really understand what good truly was. But he was still actually trying to do good until Zial died. When he goes mad, is when...
But didn't he get a little bit... Hadn't he started to go back? Well, I guess when he goes completely mad, but I thought he'd started to be evil again.
He had the Cardassian. He was the one who joined the Cardassians with the Dominion. That was before Zial died, and
and that's the thing. So that was his kind of deeper, desire for.
At least the way he talked, though, he still seemed like he thought he was doing a good thing for his people.
Yeah, well, right.
After Zial died, he didn't even care about his people.
Well, the whole
he
thing
just wanted to hurt people.
The whole thing about Dukat is really the whole motivations and all that stuff is really explored in the episode Waltz.
Is that the one where Sisko, where he's like talking to himself and he's literally gone insane?
Yes, that's the one where Sisko and him are stuck on the planet. And that's when he really goes into it, and you can kind of... But the question is how much... so what he's doing is he's really revealing this whole thing about... Himself. Like, he always was, bitter that the Bajorans didn't see him as there to help them. Mm-hmm. And so there's maybe potential...
Can't imagine why.
There's the potential for a little bit of delusion in that.
Yeah.
But how much of that episode is Dukat just revealing it to others, and how much of that is him, just kind of acknowledging it or realizing it himself? That's a good question.
I don't know. I would need to rewatch the episode and kind of re-evaluate it.
Another character that they didn't intend... I don't know if they intended, but Damar is a character who proves to be very, very important.
Oh my gosh, yes.
But his very first role was just this kind of like barely more than an extra.
Yeah, I didn't even notice him at first.
And then he becomes very, very important. So they took characters, and they did stuff to them that you just didn't normally see in shows of the time.
You were actually, just the other day, doing like a quiz where it was trying to remember as many of the side characters from Star Trek as you possibly could. In most of the series, you would get upset because it was somebody who like had a single line somewhere and you never even heard their name and they were listed in there. But I think you got every single DS9 one because even the background character, Morn never talks.
Morn, he never shuts up.
Even the background characters aren't just background. They have a background. They have some kind of story that you get to see at least some element of at some point, so you remember them.
Yeah. Yeah, Morn is a he's the Cliff Clavin of the Deep Space Nine.
What?
But so this is the kind of reasons why I thought that Deep Space Nine would be a good one to start off with.
Yes. Some people might prefer might be better for a lighter approach to introduce to Star Trek, in which case I would say The Next Generation is the best bet.
See, to me, The Next Generation, well, I guess we can talk about that another time. Mm-hmm. But I feel like The Next Generation, of all the series, and this is, maybe a controversial opinion, I think it holds up the worst. I think it holds up to time. Worse than even the original series from the 60s. I feel like there's something about and it's my favorite decade, but there's something about that 80s vibe that you just watch Next Generation, you're like, 80s. And it just comes across to me as like for instance, the 80s, right? It's like when literally everything was this color. Which is the entire ship is literally just this color.
See, I guess it didn't come across so strongly 80s to me. I mean, it was also my first time watching. It didn't come across nearly so strongly, but I'm not as familiar with the decade as you are.
Well, I just feel like when you watch the original series, is there stuff that's like, this is 60s? Sure. The way that the women are and some of the stuff that people say about the women and stuff like that, it's just like, it's clearly the 60s and some of the set design and but it's still, it's just, it almost feels more timeless to me than the Next Generation. But we can talk about that maybe another time. I guess for now, maybe we should wrap it up.
Before the camera has a hissy fit.
But, so, that's Deep Space Nine, right? We can come around and maybe discuss the other series
if people are interested, we can discuss the rest of the series. Especially after I finish the rest of the series. Well, because I haven't finished the original series yet. Or
right.
Enterprise.
Well, let us know what you think about all that, and we'll see you again
in the next video.